What's up, everyone? We here doing a real impromptu podcast. Make sure you subscribe. I'll tell you all those links at the end because otherwise it won't be too impromptu. And I ain't remembering them right off the bat right now. So we got a spiritual inquirer here and who got some questions. So we're about to see what we can do about that.
All right. So we were talking about how we got on this topic because we were talking about how you did work in the past and how you do work now. You were explaining how in the past, because of where you were located and because of everything at that time, people had easier access to you, and they came to you, and you wouldn't really do psychic readings. They would meet with the saints or meet with the saint at that time, and you were explaining how the saint basically
It just is how the saying is.
yeah.
Exactly. So for those people who aren't aware, when in 21 divisions, Sanse, Espiritismo, in many of these spiritual traditions, we have something where we call that the saints or the spirits mount a person, and it means that they take over that person, and they are the ones that are acting and interacting throughout inside that person.
Yeah, basically
Right.
you are the vessel and they are now the spirit inside you.
Exactly.
And so the saint is basically taking over the person.
Exactly.
And so on. So then now we were explaining how you do work, and that what you do now, because of your connection, because of the spiritual work that you put in on yourself and all the work you've done on yourself and so on and so forth, you have such a strong connection, your work is now different.
Exactly.
And that you had to understand the human construct that you hold because of who you are. And so then I started asking if it's the saint talking to people or if it's you, and you said that it was you because the saint doesn't really do that. He's not about, technology of that nature, phones and stuff like that.
Yeah, so basically the difference of like having a consultation with the spirit in possession, okay, or mounted on someone,
Yeah.
or having a consultation with like
Well, you, the priest,
the priest and using the gifts and the
and
abilities.
these that you are gifted with, and yep, exactly. So exactly that. So then I asked the question, basically was, do people understand the difference between when they're speaking to the priest and they're speaking to the saint?
And the answer is most of the time no.
Okay.
Because really a lot of times when you're talking to a priest, even the saint be coming through and talking to you, even because they're not mounted the priest, the saint can still be talking to you through the priest. Because the priest is the mouthpiece for those spirits.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times only certain people have the knowledge to see. And so that they have the capacity to see that when they're talking to a priest, they might actually be talking to the saint, not the priest at all. Sometimes they're talking to the priest, sometimes they're talking to the saint. And they gotta understand that when they're talking to the saint is how it is. That means like, and that includes the priest. If they're developed, if they've had the proper training and they're how they should be, they're in order.
Yeah.
Okay, they're a true priest. Then, when they talking to you, when they showing you the way, the path, whatever it may be, how they interact with you, depend on the saints and the spirits. And so, sometimes a priest may act outside of what you think is normal for a priest to act. But you can't see why the priests act the way that the priests act because you don't know that yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes the priest may even speak outside of the way that the priest
Person
normally
normally
speaks
speaks.
with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might seem like the priest is irritated with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might seem like the priest is this with you or that with you. But really, it's nothing like that on the priest.
Yeah.
Okay? If the priest is really a clear channel for the santos, for the spirits, for the misterios, for the mysteries,
For all
for the
that.
guides, whatever, they working with the backing of that. And they clear. There's a clear channel of communication that comes through. Sometimes you talking to the priest, sometimes you talking to
To the
the
saint.
saints, and sometimes even the priest doesn't know that it's the saints talking through him. Does that make sense?
Now, okay.
Because
So wait.
if that priest is developed enough, it'll come through so subtly but so strongly that it'll go right through, and the priest like basically
It's
loses a moment, and that moment doesn't exist for the priest because the spirit's able to just
on and off
on and off and clear right through and say some shit.
because maybe something has to be said.
Yep, and the spirit is like that, and some people can see it. And I have certain godchildren that'll be like, "Oh, I remember when I called you, and it wasn't you that was talking to me. It was so and so that was talking to me, or this or this or that." But it's just that it works differently. Does that make sense?
Okay, so
and I don't
okay.
recall them situations because it's not for me.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's for the saint and the person at the time being. It's between them.
Exactly.
Got you, and it's not basically in your conscience. Okay,
Nope.
so, oh damn, what was the question? Okay, so like you were saying, like you have certain godchildren. They're like, it was this, that, and a third. Now, when they said that it was this, that, and a third, did they name specific saints?
Yeah, some of them will know which saints. Some of them won't know which saints. Some people who come in, they might not be my godchildren, but they have the spiritual sight enough to know that it's a saint talking to them, or a spirit talking to them, and not me talking to them, or not a spiritual worker talking to them, whatever the case may be. Now, that's different than when the saint comes and mounts someone, all right, or the spiritual worker calls that saint to mount them, and then that saint consults someone. When that saint comes that way, that saint, you're gonna know it's that saint because that saint gonna come in. That saint is gonna change how that person totally is. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But when the saint is speaking through the priest, when the mystery is speaking through the priest, you might not know that because they're speaking through that same voice box right through there, just like I'm speaking to you right now.
Yeah.
Does that make
No,
sense?
yeah, yeah. No, I
Okay.
completely saying. I understand what you're saying.
All right. So some people, they can even feel it. There's like a vibration or electric or an anxiety or a nervous that come on them, and they can even feel when that saint is talking through the priest, and then other people, they don't know it. Okay? And the people who don't know it, it might even seem crazy to them. Okay? It might seem crazy to them because if that priest or that person who had the gift, they don't know how that gift works. And they don't know, they don't have the training, they don't understand it, they don't develop it, they don't unravel it. Okay? If that happens, what that person is saying may seem crazy to everybody else, but it's not crazy. It's the only person that makes any sense, and in the end, you see that that person makes sense.
Okay, so
Right?
so
that.
so okay, that I understand. I'm getting that part. But how would you go ahead and tell someone? I don't really know if I would tell you to tell someone. How would you explain to someone like to get started?
On this path, you need somebody to show you the way. So basically, connecting with the proper priest, Not every priest is everything. Every priest has their own roles in people's life and does different things. Some priests are teachers, some priests are priests, some priests are more ritualistic, some priests are more magical in orientation, some priests are more
Got you.
godparents,
They
some people are
they're
more
they're they're they're,
parental,
they're mastered towards a certain
right?
path,
So
nature.
you need a priest that can teach you and that can show you about these things, that can guide you down the path of these things. Have a consultation usually with the priest because that's how it starts, and then go from there depending on what needs to be. You've learned a lot of bad ways, a lot of ways of how not to be, ways that don't work for you. You have to learn the opposite of that. What does work?
Yeah, and
You see what
you have
I'm
to step
saying?
out.
Exactly. So you have to go down that route. Learn. Learn. If I say to you, learn a whole bunch of information everywhere, is pointless for you. Okay?
Yeah, because you're
Because
jumbling the mind.
you need to basically go and do things the right way. Because there's ways to do things for a reason. It's because the shit works. It's that simple, right? So you go, you learn with a proper priest. You take ceremonies that you need to get you empowered, to initiate you, to start you on the path. You get the proper training, learn what you're doing, basically make that connection with the divine first, right?
Okay.
You need that connection with the divine and you need that connection with God. Because without God, you don't got nothing. So that is always first. And if you don't have that, even working with the priest can help you have that, because some people don't have that. But it's because they don't understand the nature really of all of that. So that's a whole nother like subject. But that's A. B, work with the priest. C, get to know who through the priest. Like, if you have a proper consult or whatever, and you ask the priest, like, you want to start, what is the saints? What are the misterios, the mysteries that are willing or connected with you? Willing to work with you, connected with you, etc. What is it that you need to do to basically start unraveling that power and that connection with God and the divine and everything else?
Those are the recommended questions, is what you're saying, to ask a priest.
You're gonna say like, hey, you want to learn the spiritual path. You're gonna need to go about it to learn the spiritual path. Take whatever learning they offer you. Take whatever, everything, basically.
Got you. And then learn. You're basically saying learn your tree, learn your genetics.
Yeah,
And
learn your spirits. You gotta learn how to work with your spirits. Learn how that works. But you gotta be on the right track. That's for you too. Like basically a spiritual path that's gonna grow you, advance you, develop you, bring you freedom, joy, happiness, fulfillment, and draw you forward into all that which is good. Does that make sense?
yeah,
So you need that, and you get started.
got you.
Okay.
And then once you start developing more and more, then you'll just like I'm guessing certain ones of your godchildren, when they do call, they'll have an understanding of who they are talking to. And then just like you were saying, like you can't blame you can't blame a saint, because the saint is how the saint is. You know,
Exactly.
like, you know, they're living their life basically. The saint.
Yeah.
Is,
Basically, what I mean by that is like when you have different saints, that when they come through, everybody see that the saint mounted that person, right? Or in ceremonies, etc., you have the saint that's mounted that person, right? And it's very obvious. The saint is a total shift and a total change. Okay, so anybody who can't see it, like, then you really don't have anything. You can't see anything. I don't know what you're looking at. You see what I'm saying? It's very obvious. That is, everybody see that the saint is how the saint is. If it's a warrior saint, it comes through in a warrior mode. If it's a saint of joy, it's a saint of joy and love. If it's a saint that
Gotcha.
have that different force, it comes through with those
And
different
basically,
forces,
if
right?
you can't,
And everybody understands that's what that is, right? Sometimes with the priest it's the saints themselves talking through that priest with those same communications, but it's not a full basic.
mount.
It's not a mounting, right?
No, it's
Right?
more of a pass on through word.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like using a voice box, right?
Yeah, it's like they just basically just took over the brain, not the whole body.
Just temporarily.
Yeah, just that
like
moment
that.
they took over this whole section. So like you blank out for that moment, and then
And
yeah,
whatever gets said.
said,
It's
and then
not,
boom.
and then you're back into speaking.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like, the work is different, right? So in that first mounting, everybody understand that's the same, right? You can't get mad at a warrior for being a warrior.
Gotcha.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Etc. Etc. Sometimes the spirit is also going to communicate to you in many different ways. How the spirit communicate is how the spirit communicate, right?
Yep.
But when you're working with a proper priest, that priest is also a vehicle of communication, and that's outside of just when you think. Okay, because when you think has very little to do with much.
Got you. Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, in reality, in all senses, in reality. I mean, it's all. If you don't see it, then there's no way of explaining it, really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So the spirit will go ahead and speak through the priest, and speak through the priest in various things that it has the priest do and say, etc., etc. And the priest may or may not know. And even if they do know, that doesn't mean that they can say anything to you. Okay?
Yeah.
Because that's for you to marinate with.
Yeah.
Right? And through that marination, come the light and the truth that you'll see certain shit that you didn't see before. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And sometimes you might get mad at the priest because the priest come and give you some truth that you don't like.
Yeah, because just like they say, the truth hurts.
Exactly.
So you hear it, you're not
you
going to
might
be a
feel
fan
some
of it.
type of way at the priest, but you can feel however you want to feel. That's nice because it's the same as your thoughts for the priest. It means the same.
Yeah.
Right. So feel. That's good for you. But maybe through them feelings, you can see some other shit if you take it a little deeper.
Open it up.
And open up what the priest has given you. What the priest has given you. Exactly.
Got you. Well, that hits some key points, though. I mean, that definitely opens up the fact that, through work and through time on yourself and practice and stuff of that nature, then you can come to light and see the difference between priest and saint. And, through just all that, you also explain how the fact that certain things that basically need to be said will be said, and you can feel how you want, and it should open up a light. Work with it is what you're saying.
Exactly. And not every priest has developed that capacity as of yet.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's people who are priests who basically have not developed that capacity.
Yeah.
But when you're working with a priest, you got to understand that that's what they're doing. And when the information come through and come forward, you just basically take it and you move forward with it and let that bring you to the next thing. Right? Let it bring you clarity, let it bring you see where the real problem is at.
Got you. That makes sense.
As I said, I would add, make sure that you subscribe to this channel on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify. Check me out on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram at Hungan Hector, HOUNGANHECTOR. And make sure that you subscribe to the newsletter and check out the blog at hectorsalva.com. Again, you could check out this podcast on many of the podcast apps. Looking up Papa Hector Salva, you'll find the show. I hope that you enjoy, and we'll be coming out with a new episode relatively soon.